Welcome to this week's episode of Optimal Game State. In today's episode, we're going to look at something a little different. With Halloween around the corner, I thought we'd have a look at a horror-themed scenario. In this case, we're going to look at one of the old Warhammer classics, Terror of the Lichemaster. In this video, I'll take some time to look over the background and how the mini-campaign played out. It's actually in the format of a 3-battle campaign arc that we're very familiar with in Warcry. Terror of the Lichemaster was a mini-campaign written by Rick Priestley for the Warhammer Fantasy 2nd edition. It was published by Games Workshop in 1986 and introduced the character of Heinrich Kemmler, a powerful necromancer, and his undead champion Krell. Kemmler appears on and off throughout the various editions and only meets his eventual demise when Games Workshop finally ends the old world. As an aside, Kemmler is named after the real-life villain Heinrich Kramer, author of the Malleus Maleficarum. The older GW works tend to have references and jokes like this, and this book is packed with them, although I'm reasonably sure I've missed 90% of them. At this point, Heinrich Kemmler, once known as the Lichemaster, is a broken man. In his earlier years, he was a powerful necromancer and spent years gathering powerful artifacts and seeking lore. More recently, he was badly beaten by a group of his rivals, other necromancers and vampires jealous of his abilities. Now he travels as a confused hermit begging for a living in the Grey Mountains. It is there in the shadow of Frugal Horn Mountain that he finds the tomb of the legendary warrior Krell, an infamous champion of the gods of chaos. Pushing himself to the edge of death, Kemmler uses his dark magic to raise Krell. It succeeds, raising Krell as a White Lord. Seeing Kemmler on the brink of death, Krell invokes the Chaos Gods to restore him, and offers Kemmler even more power should he swear to the same dark gods. The Lichemaster then becomes this weird aberration. He's a necromancer sworn to chaos. The Chaos Gods grant him 7 more days of life, and more days and more power for each soul he should dedicate to them. His first task then is to travel down from the mountain and kill everyone in the nearby village of Frugalhofen. This is the 2nd edition of Warhammer, so the game has a lot more role-playing elements around it than a war game that we would consider these days. So you get a lot more of the background and the motivations of the factions. It also encourages the use of a game master, a third party to help run the games, to make things fairer, but more importantly, more fun. It also has elements of historical war games. The 3 battles already have set armies to play out rather than letting you bring your own army. So it's an opportunity to play through the story rather than a way to test your skill against your enemy. The campaign is a series of 3 battles. The first is a battle against dwarves at a mine, then there's an attack against a farm, and then finally the big attack on the village. Warcry campaigns are ongoing ones that are specific to the warbands themselves. So you can play hundreds of games and keep developing your warband, and someone who has picked up their first box can still play against you. Within that format, you have the campaign arcs. Each campaign arc we've seen has its own approach, but broadly, these are a chain of connected games. The Path of Ventax is one of the core rulebook that has 2 players playing across 3 games. As this is part of a campaign, players will receive their own benefits from winning or losing in terms of glory, renown, and magic artifacts. As Warcry games are pretty fast, you can get through 3 games in an evening, or maybe at even a more casual pace on a weekend. Having a chain of games like this that are narratively connected is a great way to have a little bit more fun. One thing I particularly like about this format is that the battle plans are pre-planned and already known, so each player can work out what would be the best warband and how to organize that warband into 3 battle groups for all 3 of those battle plans. Alright, let's have a look and see how the campaign played out. The first battle is the assault on the mine. In this, 20 skeletons along with leader Raniak the Black attack a group of dwarfs that are working in the mountains at a mine. There are 6 dwarfs in total: Gimbrin Finehelm, a champion wearing plate and wielding a double-handed sword, along with 5 dwarfs in mail with shield and axe and sword. 3 of them also have crossbows. I've used minis here from oldhammer.com. I heartily recommend checking out this website. Matthew here collected all of the models he could, as the models were a release that GW originally did as part of this, so you could get them. and he's painted them all up, and they all look fantastic. These models are almost impossible to get these days. Definitely check out that website if you're interested in it, and more of his pictures will be here along the way. The terrain for this battle is pretty complex. This box actually came with a set of cardboard buildings to set up with. So there's 3 buildings for the mine camp, a bridge over the stream, an aqueduct, mine entrance, and even rail cars for the mine. It would be a quite impressive project to do if you're going to do it, and is probably intended for a table much bigger than one we're using in Warcry. I wouldn't try replicate it exactly as is. Deployment is relatively straightforward. This is a closed-off ravine, so the undead start at the open end, the dwarves start at the camp, apart from one dwarf who was set up as a lookout. The victory condition is simple. The dwarf goal is to survive, and the goal of the undead is to kill them all. There are some specific rules for the scenario, like fast running water, difficult terrain for the spoil tips, and buildings that can be destroyed. A particular twist that is only revealed to the game master and the undead player is that the undead must stay within 12 inches of the leader, and if the leader is destroyed, the rest of the undead will be destroyed. The second battle is the attack of Bogle's farm. This is the next destination on the way to the main village. The defenders are essentially the Walton family, or in this case the Bogles. Hunk is the dad, Laura Beth the mum, John Boy and Willie are the sons, and Corabella the daughter. They also have Fritzy the dog, and Samgath is a halfling farmhand. To double down on the jokes, they are attacked by Michael Jackson, so Michael Jacsen, along with 10 zombies, which definitely has thriller vibes. The terrain has a road to the village and a bridge over the stream, and the farmhouse sits on a hill next to some woods. The undead can start at any point on the map to the north or west of the village, and at least 16 inches away from the farm. Bogle family start in the house, Samgaff is in the dairy next to the farm, and the dog is tied up in his kennel. The undead simply wish to destroy everyone, to make sure no one can warn the village. The Bogles just try to escape. If they can move off the board along the road, they can get away. However, if an undead should follow them off the board in the following turn, then it's assumed that they catch up and they kill the fleeing Bogle member. There aren't really any details on what's considered a victory or not, though. So basically you play it out and see who gets escaped and see who gets killed by zombies. The last battle is at Frugalhorn Village. Forest off to the west, river running north-south, mill, a bridge, and lots of buildings for the village in the main part. At this point we check the results of the previous 2 battles. If the dwarfs have won, or the Bogles escape, then they've already managed to reach the village, and the village is prepared because they were warned. The village player gets to set up their army anywhere not within 12 inches of the table edge. Otherwise, the village player must set up within the village. In addition, the Lichemaster's forces get a double move on their first turn. The undead forces include Kemmler and Krell, along with 20 skeletons and 10 zombies. Any survivors from the earlier battles also appear, with each group rolling a d4 and arriving at that turn. The defenders are a colourful mix. There are 40 basic villagers, 20 with hand weapons and bows, and the other with hand weapons and shields. Any survivors from the previous battles will also turn up, and then we have 5 heroes. Albo Schutz is the storekeeper and former Inter-Valley wrestling champion, so he has a plate armor and a sword and shield. We have Grimwald Calco, who is a Bretonian anarchist with throwing knives and bombs, definitely giving a V for Vendetta feel. Antonio Epstein is said to be a half Italian, half Reichlander who lives in Albion. He's apparently on his way to a fancy party in the south. Now, Italy later is named Tylea in the setting, and not many people go to the scary land of Albion, which is the misty, druid-run stand-in for Britain in the setting. So his background is a little weird. It's likely this is another joke, as Anthony Epstein was the British scientist who discovered one of the herpes variants. Yeah, classic GW. Then we have Rialta Snow, a beautiful elf archer on a tour of the world, who also appears in the Lustria adventure Magnificent Sven. Last we have Gim Grundle, a halfling wearing a cooking pot for a helm. The defenders also have some magical items, all from the store owner Albi Schultz. A shield of adamantine, a sword of adamantine, a ring of courage, and a power sphere, which can be used to drain magic from the undead or a caster. If the village was warned, these items have been handed out as desired. Otherwise, They're sitting in a chest in the village and can be picked up if you can get to it. This is a battle to the death, and it's a winner-takes-all situation. One of the tricky aspects with these campaign arcs is you do want to have some sort of reward for winning a battle. We want the games to feel like they mean something. This can be a problem with a chain of games. If the winner of the first game gets an advantage in the second game, then they're more likely to win that second game and so on. In a big campaign with lots of players, you can pair off the winning players from the first round against each other and losing players to play against each other themselves. With only 2 players though, you don't really have that luxury. So there's a few different approaches you can take. The first is to give rewards for winning each battle and let them get an advantage in subsequent battles. The second is to give rewards for winning each battle, but only have them impact the final battle. This still does run the risk of one player winning the first 2 games and then having a massive match in the third game, but at least the first 2 games should be even enough. Third option is to dispense with them, really, and just have narrative rewards. Things that don't impact the balance of the games, but do have some sort of feel-good factor. Maybe an overall score or story beats, like saving the villagers. Then if you wanted, you could score the campaign over the 3 games, but maybe have the climactic battle as one that offers war points. So it's something you kind of need to look at and kind of consider. Although Terror of the Lichemaster does take the second approach, it is notable that the army lists are already fixed, and they aren't actually fair. Matthew at Old Hammer, who again did those fantastic miniatures, did some math, and the games by design are unbalanced. In second edition points, the dwarfs almost double that of the undead. The Bogle family are nearly 4 times the points of the undead attackers, and in the final battle, Kemmler has about a 50% advantage. Obviously, points aren't the be-all and end-all, but it does go to show that these games were not designed to be fair. I think the goal here is to have more of an experience and enjoy the story as it plays out rather than to necessarily win. Alright, with that in mind, let's see what we can do with Warcry. The battle for the mine is our first port of call, and Red Harvest terrain is perfect for this. On the original map, obviously the mine was only a small part of the overall battle, but with the smaller size of Warcry boards, we can get away with focusing in on it a little more. For the undead team, we need a leader of some sort, so I pick out a White King, just to give him something a bit chunky. On the other side, we have the Warden King and some Armbreakers, although I imagine you could get away with the recent box of Fire Slayers just as well. In the original battle, Gimbrin Finehelm had 5 other dwarfs with him. That would make this a relatively small warband of about 500. For the undead, you could pack out skeletons until you reach that same point cost. Now, if you do make it a 1000 point battle, you will need to get a little bit more creative with the skeletons, as otherwise you'll quickly end up hitting your 16 fighter limit. For the twist, we went with the Dead of Night, which seemed thematic but shouldn't impact the warbands. The Clash of Blades deployment has one group coming in from the corner and then the other from the opposite corner. If we imagine the entrance to the mine was one side with the dwarf vendors enclosed on the other, kind of makes sense. We have the victory of Cut Off the Head. In the original, of course, this was something the dwarf player wasn't aware of. Killing Raniak the Black would destroy the other skeletons. Similarly, I think if Gimbrin went down, the morale of the other dwarfs might break, so it does kind of make sense. The second battle is at the farm. Again, for the undead side, I've tried to mirror the old warband, which would have just been Michael Jackson and 10 zombies. On the other side, we should have the Bogle family. In this case, I think the new Wilder Corp hunters would be perfect. The leader's a dad, give mom a spear, the kids get some crossbows, and you even have Fritzy as a dog model. Bonus points here if you can find one of those Blood Bowl halflings and insert him as Samgath. Scenery I have here in the backdrop is the Elven Woods from Archon Studios. I figure some nice trees for the orchard, drop in some farmhouse buildings in the middle, and we're good. For the battle itself, I went with Gaze of the Dark Gods twist, more for the name than anything else. Deployment is the Central Massacre. I want to put the farm in the center and then have the Bogles as the defenders for the mission. There was actually a victory available that I felt mirrored the story pretty well. The attacker here selects a side of the board for the defender to escape from, and then the defender picks 3 treasure carriers, and they're trying to get off the board. If at least 2 do, they win. So this will be the Bogles trying to get that warning out to the village. Last up, we have the big battle at the village. I picked King Velmorn here, who I would personally run as Kemmler, but then use the Necromancer model. That's because I wanted one Jedran as Krell. He'll then be able to use his ability to protect Kemmler. The only ability we lose out for not using Necromancer profile is the Necrotic Siphon, which I think I'm okay with. You do lose out on the range attack, but you do get a much nicer melee attack. Against them, we want to put a band of heroes. So here I've picked out the Stormcast Quest Warband. Depending on how you want to go about it, you can make it more or less competitive depending on what models you have. I would also suggest adding in Gimbrin if he won the battle, and Hunk Bogle or one of the other Bogles that makes sense if they survive. Similarly, you can add extra zombies and skeletons if the undead won their side of the area battle. So, that could get a bit messy, but story-wise it'll be fun. In the background, we have some terrain from GameMat.eu. There's plenty of similar stuff out there. We just want to get some sort of village vibe going. For the twist, I've gone with Warning Cry, but we're going to cheat a little bit with it. We've gone for the escalation battle plan, which has battle groups arriving on round 2 and round 3. In this case, we're going to let the undead side deploy at the start as they're marching in. Then the defender can pick one of their delayed deployments to arrive immediately for each battle that they've already won. More of a story thing than anything else. Victory here is no quarter, which is all about trying to control quarters of the map. And that's it. So right now we've got some broad strokes around how we'd like to redo Terror of the Lichemaster mini-campaign in Warcry. I think it should be enough for you to start and work out what you would like to do for your own version. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you do, please do check back next week, as my current plan is to keep working on this as a project. So I think the models from the Cursed City box actually do match up quite well with the heroes who defend the village. Alas, they don't necessarily match existing profiles, so we're going to have to do a little bit more custom work there. If you have any ideas or suggestions on how to improve and develop this, please do let me know, as there's a good chance I'll be doing a follow-up video on it. Thanks for making it all the way to the end. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Each week I put up a new video talking about one of Games Workshop's specialist games. The goal is always to try and make the best possible two-player experience. If this is something you'd find interesting, please subscribe to the channel and comment to let me know what you'd like to see in future.